So today, under our European slave masters' names, black people, the names of Smith, Huckabee, Byrd, and the common ones such as Thomas, Johnson, Williams, Jefferson, and Harris, we have accepted everything that our slave masters forced upon us and taught us. But this was not always the case. We talk about how we were kings and queens at some point in time in Egypt. Well, you couldn't get an Egyptian at that time to believe what we believe today. So once upon a time, we were not this type of Caucasian-made people. There was a time when we rejected their senseless doctrines. So let us consider the following from one of the most prolific books written about the history of the enslavement of the black people of the Western Hemisphere. This book is called From Slavery to Freedom, A History of African Americans. This is the 7th edition by Mr. Franklin and Mr. Moss Jr. I think it's up to the 9th edition right now. Well, it states in this book, in West Africa, where the population was especially dense and from which the great bulk of slaves was secured, Christianity was practically unknown until the Portuguese began to establish missions in the area in the 16th century. It was a strange religion, this Christianity, which taught equality and brotherhood and at the same time introduced on a large scale the practice of tearing people from their homes and transporting them to a distant land to become slaves. If the Africans south of the Sahara were slow to accept Christianity, it was not only because they were attached to their particular forms of tribal worship, but also because they did not have the superhuman capacity to reconcile in their own minds the contradictory character of the new religion. So 500 years ago, black people could not and did not accept this false religion. We did not accept the names of our slave masters either. According to the Great Roots docudrama made by Alex Haley, the great Alex Haley, Kunta Kinte fought hard against being called Toby. He went to fisticuffs. They had to break him to accept that name, Toby. But today we just pass on our slave masters' names to our children, the next generation, without even a second thought. We only think about what the first name should be. Shaquita Williams McGillicuddy. Well, Shaquita sounds okay, Afrocentric, but why not scrap the McGillicuddy? Now, what is Shaquita gonna name her children? Thomas Dean McGillicuddy? And then what is he gonna name his child? So the black McGillicuddys go on through the annals of time. Ideally, but we don't live in the ideal. So having been under the complete rule and subjugation of our enslavers since that time, when the transatlantic slave trade first started, not only have we been immersed into a legacy of immeasurable suffering and abuse that we can't even fathom today, but extending to this day, we also serve as proof the black people in the Western Hemisphere, of how long our mortal enemies have had complete access to us to breed us into unconscious slaves. So for most black people of the Western Hemisphere, we cannot see ourselves being called by any other name than the European names brutally branded on the arms and the backs of our forebears, who fought against being called by such meaningless names. Sometimes we don't even like it, those names. You know how you go to school and you have people that got these weird names, but all you remember is that they were called Skeeter or some name like that, or Skeet. It's not until they die or get married that you, damn, I didn't know his name was, Joseph Hambone Smith, or some kind of other crazy name. Jonathan Fitzpatrick or R. Bark something. So we don't want to walk around with that name because that means we're going to be teased and bullied. So I'll take Skeet. Just call me Skeet. Yo, Skeet.